Lewy body dementia is a horrible disease. It affects your thinking, memory, and motor control. Dad was always well-groomed. He was on a bro-cream kick for years. One day, Dad went into the bathroom and combed his hair. When he came out, I noticed his hair was white. Not gray, but white. He mistakenly grabbed the toothpaste instead of the bro-cream. That was the first sign of dementia that I remember. This is Craig, not me. Alright. I had the honor of taking care of Dad with a couple of my brothers and a sister. I like to thank Susie passed to give me that honor. I spent the last 8 months of his life close to him. Baseball games, Traders Village, live music with Felix, karaoke at his favorite taqueria, or just sitting outside in the sun on our face, in the sun with our faces in the sun and talking. To sit and watch Dad die was grueling. It was a long and stressful day. I was so proud of my family, Mom, all 8 kids, grandkids, in-laws. Dad's sister and a lot of cousins were by his side. The courage and love my mom showed was incredible. She sat next to Dad for 12 hours, holding his hand, caressing his arm, and rubbing his head while his heartbeat slowly declined. She literally prayed for him the entire time. When Father John from St. Rose of Lima arrived to give Dad his last rites, we were relieved. He explained to us how we would administer them. He grabbed his Bible and said a prayer. Then he laid his hands on Dad's forehead and made the sign of the cross. At that instant, Dad took his last breath and passed. It was amazing. We all looked at each other in amazement. It was the perfect ending to a very sad day. Most people's last words are, "I love you, take care of Mom," or "let me tell you where the insurance policy is." I got close. Dad's last words to me were, "I love you more than a big piece of shit." Again, correct word. God bless you, Daddy. I love you so much. Lord, that's up. Here it comes. All right. Thanks, Craig. All right, so I have a few things. I know I'm between you and not dinner or lunch, but home. I am my father's son. My memories of my childhood are great. As I look around at my brothers and sisters, they tell me about all these hard times and barely had enough to eat. People hiding in, cars, telling people to duck so their friends wouldn't see them. All I remember was me and Craig going to Bonanza like every other day, with Mom and Dad. And we eat a lot. But, when I think of my dad, I think of a couple of things. He was a lifesaver. And when I say lifesaver, I truly mean lifesaver. I think I was about 5, maybe 6. And we all had marbles. And he used to tell us all the time, "Don't put those things in your mouth." Well, of course, we didn't listen. And one time I put one of the big ones in my mouth and I couldn't get it out because I was choking. I think I turned purple. Dad was applying that bro-cream, believe it or not, in the bathroom. And I went over there and he saw that I couldn't breathe. And somehow, some way, with bro-cream all over his fingers, he managed to stick his fingers down my throat and get that marble out. I had a similar experience with one of my kids as my wife's flying off back to the States to help her father one time, so I know what that's like. Second time I was in college studying all night because I never did anything early. And, I got up one morning, I talked to Dad, said hello, and as soon as I looked at him, my neck spasmed and I passed out. Then about, I don't know how many minutes later, I wake up and Dad's blowing air into my face. But he was definitely a lifesaver, never complained, and drove me to Wilford Hall like we all had done 100 times for whatever ailment we had. So again, truly a lifesaver. Now, Dad was a hunter, as the deacon mentioned. He hunted everything, including, squirrels and anything that was sitting in the trees in his front yard. I do remember one time going dove hunting with him, man, Vera's and Uncle Frank's, and the first time he ever gave me the shotgun, which was kind of a big deal, he told me to pump that thing and shoot. Well, what he meant was pump that thing and shoot at something in the air, not something sitting on the telephone line. I'm not sure how many people couldn't communicate that day, but I did learn very quickly not to shoot a defenseless animal, so it was pretty bad, actually. The rest of the time he was deer hunting and, killing something, but it always wound up making its way home in sausage in a Ziploc plastic bag, so it was pretty good. A philanthropist. My version of philanthropy might be a little bit different. I think my kids would agree as well, but Dad was a pretty generous man. I don't think anybody ever went wanting anything when you were near my dad, especially food. As you can see from all the pictures that were being displayed earlier, he really enjoyed a lot of food. But I don't know if it was because Dad and Mom maybe even corrected, but I don't know if we grew up hungry or not. Anybody who has been hungry knows how much they appreciate food, and I think my dad and all the barbecue that he made, all the people that he fed, and that barbecue legacy lives today, not really through me, but through Craig and Marty, and Pete. And, but Dad wanted us all to make sure we shared and took care of people, and he was a great example for that. And lastly, not lastly, probably most importantly, and you guys can see by the fact that he's sitting in his uniform, wearing it well and wearing it proudly. My brother Pete went into the Navy probably before I was, young enough or old enough to even understand what it is he did, but he did it for a long time under the water, and I know my dad appreciated that about him. I know I do. But my dad was a soldier, and he loved the Army. He was only in the Army for about 16 years and 2 months and change, right? Dad entered the Army when he was, pretty young, and on the 31st of March of 1955. He did 6 overseas tours, 2 in Germany, 1 in the Republic of Korea, 1 in Panama. There's an old man story there, but I'll leave it alone. And then in Vietnam twice. Dad served 3 full tours, three full combat tours in Vietnam. He was a platoon sergeant and a first sergeant, as the deacon mentioned. Went to Vietnam twice. The first time in 1966 for a year, and then again in 1969 for 7 months. And I'm sure he would have stayed the full year and volunteered again. Unfortunately, he came back wounded. One of the pictures was up on the display, and I do remember that time, as young as I was, and pretty heartwarming to know that some of the things that he had done. I want to read 2 of them. You may or may not have heard these. Dad was very proud again of his military service, but the first one is dated 7 April 1968. This was when Dad was in Fort Benning in Georgia. And the award reads something like this. Bronze Star Medal with V device, date of action August 2nd, 1967, Republic of Vietnam. Sergeant Ruiz distinguished himself by heroism in connection with ground operations against an armed hostile force in the Republic of Vietnam on 2 August 1967, while assigned to C Company, 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry, 199th Light Infantry Brigade. During the evening hours on that date, Sergeant Ruiz volunteered to lead a relief element to reinforce a squad pinned down by intense enemy fire. As the relief force arrived at the battle site, Sergeant Ruiz sighted a wounded soldier trapped on the opposite bank of a nearby river. With complete disregard for his own safety, he swam across the river, exposing himself to enemy fire. To aid the wounded man, returning to his platoon, Sergeant Ruiz moved from position to position, directing his unit's fire and coordinating its movements. He continued to expose himself to the hail of enemy bullets in order to place effective fire upon the enemy until the hostile force was dispersed. Because of his courageous actions, the lives of several men were saved, and a determined number of enemy were defeated. Sergeant Ruiz's valorous actions and devotion to duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, the 199th Light Infantry Brigade, and the United States Army. The second one goes something like this. Following award is announced. Pedro Ruiz, Platoon Sergeant, Army Combination Medal with V device. Date of service 28 February 1970, Republic of Vietnam. Platoon Sergeant Ruiz distinguished himself by heroism in connection with military operations against a hostile force on 28 February 1970, while serving as a platoon leader with Company D, 2nd Battalion, 60th Infantry, 3rd Brigade, 9th Infantry Division in the Republic of Vietnam. On this date, on an air mobile operation, his platoon came under intense small arms fire from an enemy force entrenched in well-concealed bunkers. The platoon gradually began to maneuver toward the hostile position. Sergeant Ruiz, wounded in the initial enemy assault, refused aid and remained to direct his platoon against the hostile fire. Firing his rifle, he exposed himself again to the fusillade of hostile fire when the point element was cut off from the remainder of the platoon. Sergeant Ruiz continued to direct his platoon against the enemy until the point squad had extracted itself and had rejoined the other elements of the platoon. Platoon Sergeant Ruiz's actions were in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. Those are just two of several. I had the privilege of having some friends grab my dad's complete military record from the National Archives about 2 weeks ago, because we knew we had some of these things, but we weren't really sure where they were. I was blessed to have those friends. I know Dad felt blessed to have friends of similar stature and meaning in his life, because when you're in the military, it's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood, it's an everything, but you only have each other. We knew we always had Dad. We used to see people come and visit us we didn't even know, but they would show up with gratitude and respect. And that's the respect I have for my father today. He lived a life of selfless service and sacrifice to this nation. Let me end with this. Again, Dad, you look great in that uniform. We love you. You will be missed. And God bless you till we meet again. Thank you.